This segment is brought to you by JigMasters Jigs. When in doubt, get the jig out. Go to JigMasters.com and use promo code PNF20 and save 20% off your next jig order today.
Welcome to the Bass Kayak and Beer segment on the Paddle and Fin Network. It's your host Armando Solan, and on this segment we kick back with a special guest and talk about life, kayak fishing, and the pursuit of big bass. So get your cold brews on and enjoy the show. Welcome once again to the Bass Kayak and Beers Network, and I got today Mr. Jimmy Skinner. Jimmy is the host of the Reel Down on the Paddle and Fin Network. He's also a trail director in Alabama, and we're going to be talking about all the great stuff that's come out this year in the tournament scene. Jimmy is more dialed into the pulse of the tournament scene than most people, and that's why I want to bring him on the show. I'm a big fan of the tournament scene. I like where it's going. I know there's a lot of stuff coming out, so we're kind of going to talk about, what's going on in the tournament scene and what can we expect for the future, both from Jimmy's perspective, as he sees it. And keep in mind, a lot of this is going to be personal opinions. And from my perspective, and hopefully you guys enjoy this conversation. So welcome once again to the Bass Kayak and Beers Network, Mr. Jimmy Skinner. How you doing?
Appreciate it. Thanks for having me, dude. I hate that it took us so long to get this going, man. We've been talking about this for a week or two now, so...
So Jimmy, brief introduction. Now you are you're co-host of the Reel Down along with Dan Perry. You're also a tournament director or trail director in Alabama. And we're just talking about that. You just wrote an article that got published in the Bassmasters. Tell us a little bit about your background when it comes to tournament fishing.
Yeah, so didn't get into tournament fishing too heavy till a few years ago when I really picked up kayak fishing. Didn't really take it too serious. I just like being out on the water and competing. Did that for a couple of years. Then I got on as a trail director with our local club, North Alabama Kayak Anglers. I just hold our throwdowns, which are just the small kind of entry-level stuff to get guys out that maybe want to see how a kayak tournament goes before they get into our local stuff. And then Bassmaster came along. This is their inaugural year. And then with them doing the national trail, they wanted to bring in a state level system where guys could compete in their home states and qualify through a championship to go to the Bassmaster Classics. So I'll say I kind of got thrown into it. I told them I would handle it if none of the other state directors could. I didn't realize what all I was getting into, but it's been awesome. So it's been a lot of work. Our state's real grassroots, so it took a little more work than some of the other states like Tennessee, where everybody was real for it. There's a lot of convincing that I had to do things, but it's really fun. And then we just did. We're the first of the Bassmaster Bass Nation state levels to hold a qualifying tournament so far. So we held a tournament on Gunnersville, had 43 guys show up. I sent 5 winners to the 2021 Classic that's coming up in Texas. So, and then like you said, I wrote up a brief little thing for Bassmaster, and it's on their website, just kind of a brief thing, how the day went, how we do it, and what's to come.
Oh, man. I know with the whole COVID-19 thing, has Bassmaster changed its approach to how you qualify for the Classic this year? Because I know, next year. Like this year was, whoever wanted to join could just pay the fee and go in. But next year's Bassmaster Classic for the kayak series is going to be, you have to earn your way into it. I thought at some point, I'm sorry to interrupt you, but for a second, but I thought at some point it might change because some of the events got canceled. But is it still the same thing? You have to qualify through, placement on one of the trails?
Yeah, so for right now, not much has changed. I don't think that they may have canceled one. I know they rescheduled the Chickamauga event for later in the year.
Yeah.
So the way it works is based off participation of each event and the entries, but I think it was like the last one, and probably today they're having the one in California. I think the top 20 are qualified for the Classic. And then since we kind of threw this state level stuff together this year, any of the clubs that get that going this year will send the top 10% of that event that they use to qualify. So, it'll be no fewer than 5 per state level club, plus all of the guys that qualify via the national trail. But so far, nothing has changed to get you to the 2021 Classic due to COVID. Some of the way that we do the event changed, and the way they are doing the event changed, getting rid of the captain's meetings and the weigh-ins only for the top 5 and stuff like that. But as far as getting to the big game and big show at the end, it's pretty much the same as it was.
Cool, man. So diving into real quickly on what's going on in the kayak fishing tournament scene. We know when we started the year, we were all hyped up about what this year was going to be. We all thought, and truth of the matter is, it has been a great year for kayak fishing. Now, we thought it was going to blow up and everything. Then the pandemic thing started, a bunch of things that got canceled, postponed. KBF, I think, was hit the hardest with it. OBBOS also got hit hard, and Bassmasters, like we mentioned, didn't get as hard hit, but still got affected with everything. And so I'm sure all the local trails and all that. And then Scott Butcher comes out with 5 Live, which I love the dynamic of it. I thought it was genius. It was 2 hours of pure excitement, in my opinion. And I think shortly, or kind of around, I can't remember who started this first. Was Scott Butcher or Greg Nosa with KBBT? But I want to say Scott Butcher was the first one to bring this kind of like knockout stage. With five on each bracket or tournament, the top 5. I got lost in translation here, but you get the idea. I got you. Go ahead, explain. You could probably explain it better. What did Scott Beecher had that it was going to be 5 going at the same time, right?
Yeah, it was the 5 Live, which was 5 guys on live coverage for 2 hours.
Yeah.
I think he held 4 of those or 5. I can't remember. The winner of each one, they did a tournament at the end, and then they voted in. Was supposed to be one angler, the people's choice to be in the championship round. It ended up being 2 people. It was Craig Dye and I cannot remember.
Yeah, I think it was
Tim Perkins. I think.
Yeah, I think so. It ended up being 7 at the end.
Yeah, but I love it. Like I like the traditional fishing tournament scene. I really like how kayak fishing does it, especially like with Hobie, with like how they do the weigh-ins, and it's all about the anglers. And Bass is getting there. This is the first year for them. They're going to run it probably almost the same way, if I had to guess, with just a few little differences. But AJ and then the guys like AJ and Steve Owens are friends, and Steve's one of the tournament directors for the National Trail. So you've got 2 friends that I'm sure they are different entities, but they're working together, and they see what works and see how things are going. So I think from then it's only going up. And then you had Scott come along when the worst thing that could happen to COVID's bad, and I'm not taking away from all the sick and affected and people that were really lives were changed. But as far as fishing, you had states telling you couldn't go fishing. You can't go here. You stay at home.
Yeah,
which crushed our industry at the beginning of the year when the industry, this is the year of expansion and explosion, it seems like, for everything. And then somebody like Scott comes up with 5 Live. I'm going to put these guys on the spot for 2 hours, the biggest names in fishing, and make them show why they're the biggest names in fishing. And it was great. And then shortly after, I think KBBT got going right after he did the first or second one. It was really close together. I could be wrong, but I know it was really close. And that worked too. A lot of guys, I like Dan. Dan did that first one. I think he got all the way up to 8th place, I think is what he finished in that. He did a really good job. And that was great too, because at the time you couldn't compete in live events. So being able to, like, if you're in a state that was allowing you to go fish, you could go fish your home water and go against somebody across the country that was doing the same. You could argue whether that levels the playing field or gives somebody an advantage. There's a lot of, if anybody gets into podcasting or listens to some of the other big kayak group pages like Kayak Bass Nation and stuff on Facebook, you can see all the banter about that. Because a lot of us, like I said, like I like old school. A lot of people have that mentality. We're like, well, if you want to be recognized in the sport, you got to show up and show out at a live event where you're on the same water as everybody else. But it was all good. so far. I think everything went well, and they had to obviously have a positive enough response that KBBT is still going. They're doing I think they're doing a team thing tomorrow.
Yeah.
Today's Saturday. It'll be on Sunday. That's a first of that kind for them. And then they just announced the new Kayak Bass. What is it? The Kayak Fishing League, KFL.
Kayak Fishing League, yeah.
Yeah, and so they've got big hopes over there and making it like a team sport and traveling and just like any other sport. So it's been an interesting year, for sure. I can't wait to see where it goes.
Yeah, it kind of want to redeem myself when I started talking about Five Live, because I got a little bit lost in translation there. But basically, Five Live was 5 guys going at the same time, and I think the top one went on to the next round, and then in another bracket was 5 guys, and the top one ended up being until there were only 5 guys left, and that was the final. So apologies, Scott Butcher, if you're listening. I should have explained that a little bit better, but for whatever reason, I got confused on that. One thing that we want to clarify to our listeners, we're going to go over a few of the tournaments like KBBT, 5 Live, Hobie BOS, KBF, and Bassmasters. We're here to share opinions and thoughts on the differences between one and another. We're not here to bash anybody or any group in particular, or we're just here to kind of analyze and see where this goes forward. Every single tournament out there has its great points and it's not so great points, and we'll talk about that. Don't anybody feel like we're hating on anything or anybody. It's just different dynamics, and that's what we're going to go over. So one of the things that I like about 5 Live, we can start off with that, is it's the concept that it's 2 hours to fish, if I'm not mistaken. I thought that when I heard about it first, I'm like, man, that's not easy. I mean, there's guys that take them 4, 6, 8 hours to get a limit. You're asking this guys to do 2 hours, and get 5 fish. I thought this could get a little bland easily, because if nobody's catching anything, then because it was all going to be, and that's what I liked about what Scott Future did. This was all going to be live. Like, you had to go to a body of water where your connection, your phone signal worked, and you were going to be live on, Facebook or whatever social media channel he was using. So every morning you get up, I think it was from like 8 to 10. I can't remember the times. But basically in the morning you get up, turn on your TV, and you can see these guys fishing. What I love about Scott Butcher did, he handpicked the guys that he wanted to bring on. And it's, the big hammers, Cody Milton. I think Russ Snyder was in that group as well, right?
I think
Scott,
Siddiqui, Jody
all of
them, and everybody.
Jody Queen, and a bunch of other names. And there were so many. We can go all day talking about the names. So if we're leaving some of the great names out, we do apologize. But yes, the top anglers basically out there, and just had them going, fish for 2 hours. I thought that was genius move. I thought it was a real gutsy move, because if you don't get 5 fish in 2 hours, or at least a few to make it interesting, then it could get boring pretty quick. And shout out to those guys. I mean, you had 2 hours. It's a lot of pressure. It's like, man, I have 2 hours to catch as many fish as I can. That gave us the opportunity to realize what a great angler Jackson Orr is. If you hadn't heard about it, he burst in. If you were dialed into kayak fishing, you knew Jackson Orr was coming.
I was just about to mention Jackson.
Yeah, he arrived. And
Cody won the whole thing.
Yeah,
Cody Milton is arguably one of the greatest anglers. He's on fire right now, like Russ Snyder's, Jody Queen, all these guys. But Jackson, his consistency, his attitude, his spirit, his effort, like, that kid, it will go high places, whether it's in this industry or whatever he does. And he's somebody that I love to follow and watch just do good. He's great to talk to. I don't know if you've had a chance. I think you've talked to him.
Yeah, I've had him on my podcast. He was more talking about his charity event for earlier this year for the whole pandemic thing. But yes,
which he's got his other charity events coming up. So anybody that's listening, go check that out. They're trying to get those numbers blown through the roof to help out. So I'm sure if you Facebook Jackson or charity tournament, it'll come up. So
Yeah. So a great dude, great kid, 17 years old, great head over and shoulders, surrounded by a great supporting group that, I'm sure does his best to keep him level-headed. Great family, Jim Moore.
oh yeah,
Another great ambassador to the sport. And the people that Jackson Orr surrounds himself with is a great supporting group. So Jackson Orr can take this, as if he wants to. He's a young buck. Maybe further along the line he'll decide to do something else. We hope he doesn't. We hope he sticks with whatever he does. Kayak fishing takes up most of his time in the future. But he's great. If he decides to stay in the sport, it's going to be the future of this sport. And Cody Milton is also a young buck. I mean, he's not an old guy by any stretch of the imagination. So I mean, the future looks bright with this kid's just wreaking havoc in the tournament scene. Jackson Orr still think he hasn't had that signature win that he's looking for. It's coming. I'm surprised he hasn't gotten in this year, but maybe next year. But I'm really looking forward to seeing him on stage with that first place win.
Everybody goes crazy when their person wins an event of any kind, but I think kayak fishing as a whole will explode when he goes and gets a big national event win, and it'll be great. Like, I can only imagine what that would feel like being him, which he's so modest that he wouldn't.
Yeah.
Oh,
devil-headed. And speaking of that, when we look at we talk about the hammers, right? That are being, their names constantly come up: Russ Snyder, Cody Milton, Jody Quinn. Again, there's a bunch of them. What's your perspective on this? Is it good for the sport, or is it bad for the sport that seems like it's always the same guys winning? As far as the growth of the sport, the popularity, and moving forward, is it good or is it bad, in your opinion?
In my opinion, I don't know if it would be good or bad. So, like, the way I look at it is, you still see it, and you'll see it on local levels, and then you'll see these guys take it up further. But so, like, right now, like Russ is on top of his game most anywhere he's going. Some people probably get sick of seeing his name up there. A lot probably don't. But just like with anything in the fishing industry, you see, like, for instance, like Kevin Van Dam.
Mm-hmm.
You can stay good for so long, but people are still, like Jackson Orr, are so hungry to get to the top that it gives, like, from my perspective, coming in, like, I want to be Russ Snyder's. So you got a lot of anglers that are going to have that mentality. I want to be, like, if I can get to an event and I can finish ahead of Russ Snyder's, I've done something. So I see it kind of as a good thing. So, like, you'll see guys coming that have never fished before. You're hearing it a lot now. Like, we just had the winners on from the, oh Lord, that was the KBF in New York. Like, people most of us haven't heard of, but beat some of the good names in the industry. You'll see guys like the guys that won the lacrosse event when I think it was the Hobie was up there.
Mm-hmm.
One of those guys had never fished that river before, and I know that most of us had never heard of him. He got third place in that event. It's things like that. It's anybody's game. You can say that it's hard to compete with these hammers that get to fish all the time, that get to put in that definite pre-fish, always on the water. But at the same time, you've got people that are getting into the sport coming from other parts of the industry, like bass boat fishing, John boat fishing, bank fishing, that know what they're doing, and now they're getting to stretch their legs in it. You got to get the quirks worked out of it. It's always a little different, getting in the kayak for the first time. I mean, you could just another sideball from that would be like Mike Iaconelli fishing the Hobie. Admitted, he can fish. Everybody knows he can fish, but he admitted, I've got to work on my kayak game because it's a little different. But as people figure that out, the names will start to change on the top. You'll see people fizzle out, and you'll see some of the guys that stay up. Like, I would almost guarantee people like Russ, Cody, and Jody Queen, you will never, like, they're not going to fade away. They will
Yeah, I
always
don't
be
think so.
consistent. They've put in the time, they put in the work, their preparation. Those three names, their preparation for tournament fishing is a giant part of their success, in my opinion.
Yeah.
And so I say it's good. It gives people something to want to beat, to want to be. So yeah, long answer, but I think it's good for the sport.
No, it's great. That's what we're looking for. Yeah, I think when you look at, and again, kayak fishing is not at that level, but when you look at pro sports, the 80s, Larry Bird and Magic Johnson, I mean, they took the NBA by storm and elevated to, from what it was kind of like a stale. And then Michael Jordan came up and he got his dynasty. I'm sure there were a couple of people that got turned off by Jordan winning everything, but for the most part, I think the sport grew because of him. The NBA is what it is, thanks built on the shoulders of Magic Johnson, Larry Bird, and then Michael Jordan. So that's an example of it.
There's things that happen like that right now in pro sports, like Tom Brady and the Patriots and Super Bowl.
Yep.
I get sick of hearing about it. But at the same time, what killed me with that, with him leaving the Patriots and now going to another team, now I'm tuned right back in. Like, well, is it really he's that good if he goes to another program and brings it on? Yep. So stuff like that will transfer over with our industry. Obviously not on that level, like you said, but you'll see it like and even not in the tournament half of it. Things like Drew Gregory leaving Jackson and going to Crescent. Yeah. You might follow Drew and not like Jackson boats, but now you hear about a giant name in our sport changing teams. He's been with Jackson like 10 years. So it re-peaks the interest, which is good for our sport and growth. It's something that puts it up there when you're searching. So all good things.
I think right now a realistic level, and I mean, I say realistic, but still it's way out there. It's still not even close to that, to that goal. But in my opinion, a realistic goal, it would be something like NASCAR. In the sense, like you said, there's the Chevy guys, there's the Toyota guys, there's the Ford guys, and then there's the drivers and all that, and I think with kayak fishing, the same thing. They're going to be the Hobie guys, the new canoe guys like yourself. I know you're sponsored by New Canoe. Congratulations on that. That was recently.
Appreciate it.
So congratulations. No problem. And you earned it. And New Canoe, New Canoe definitely got a great ambassador to their product with you on board. So congratulations. But going back to it, I think that's a realistic level where kayak fishing can go. When you look at NASCAR, for example, and I'm not a big NASCAR guy, but for the most part, it's it's unless there's a wreck happening, the real excitement doesn't come in until the last few laps,
right?
Where everything is kind of like everybody trying to race for that finish line or at least get into position. Kayak fishing, I don't know if being televised is as Bassmaster is, it's going to bring that excitement. I know Bassmaster's the dynamic of it. People love power boats. Kayak fishing, in that sense, a little bit more calming. Kayak fishing to me is great to take part in it just because the nature of the sport. And I've said it a million times, and I'll say it a million times again in my podcast. It's a very calming sport. Being there with nature, being there, the slow, peaceful grind, even if you're getting skunked, of just being out there and it's a calming effect. That doesn't necessarily translate to viewers on whether it's TV or social media like Facebook or live streaming. But there is room there to grow. I mean, we saw Scott Butcher do it, and I thought it was great. I don't know the numbers of how many viewers he had on 5 Live. I think he's happy with the receptions 5 Live got. I think he's satisfied about it. I'm not sure. I haven't talked to him about it. I know Greg Nosar, the same thing with KBBT, although he's struggling still to get everything kind of like, he has more like a live streaming weigh-in as the tournament goes, but not really able to get everybody on on live camera while they're fishing. But he's trying to work something out. So it's interesting to me how how it's going to translate to viewership. Right now, it's all on social media, whether it's Facebook or Twitch or YouTube. But I mean, I could see somebody like Red Bull, which Red Bull a lot does their mountain biking tournaments. They'll do it live, and that's a whole day. And then they'll have it on their streaming website. So I can see somebody like Red Bull coming in and saying, "Hey, you know what? I'm interested in putting this on my web series on whether it's again YouTube or something like that."
My take on it is we're not there yet.
Yeah.
And Scott touched on it when he talked about what he wants for 5 Live. And it takes money, and it takes media equipment that's expensive. There's a whole lot I'm going to put into this, so I'm going to ramble, but just stay with me. So I think that there is, so like on TV, no, I don't think that I don't think we have, like you said, our sport's calming. I don't think there's the excitement to be had to have a huge national television coverage. There can be if you have enough media equipment in place. MLF's a perfect example of that. Fishing can be long, dead, and boring, but when you have a boat following around live action that can pop on the screen at any given moment, that helps. That costs a lot of money. That's what Scott's wanting to do. And I fully agree with that. If he can find a sponsor, be it Red Bull, whoever, that will give them that, I think that would be great for our sport. Do I think it should go to TV? No. Why? TV's not where it's at anymore. It's streaming. Yep. Streaming is where your money's being made. Get it on YouTube Live. Get it on something that people have to pay that streaming fee for, because then that's going to pique those companies' interest to be with us. So somebody like Scott, and nothing against Greg and KBBT, Scott has a name that everyone in our industry knows very well, which I think he had his name in place because of doing the stuff with KBF, because of his podcast in Westbrook, that when he decided to do this with 5 Live, people were already like, you were checked off. You were with Scott no matter what he did. So you were going to tune in. So that helped. So like if I started it, nobody's going to watch it. Nobody knows who I am. You like Scott already. You're going to like his product, especially if it's good. So I definitely think it's there, but at the same time, I don't want all of these leagues and divisions and organizations and tournament series to try to do it. Like, if he gets that should be where that is. He's handpicking the best anglers in the country for it. Those are the guys that should, because of who they are, be able to produce on the spot like that. Obviously, they did it in 2 hours. Like the smaller, no, I don't want to say smaller, the other style stuff like KBBT, the kayak fishing. Now, like if the KFL thing takes off, I don't think we're ready for that. My personal opinion.
No,
I don't. It's there, and it's something. Okay, my opinion is based off how it is now. It will need room to grow. I think that if it does work out next year and they get going, there's going to be a giant cluster of stuff that's got to be learned and figured out.
Yeah.
Like, I don't think it'll be pretty, because it's not bringing in 100 anglers in one spot. You fish here. Here's our point system. You're sending guys here, bringing guys there, fishing this home event, fish that away event, rotate this guy in, take that guy out. It's going to be like a statistic nightmare. But if Greg has the help, has the people behind him, go for it. Let's see what happens. But I don't think that kayak fishing as a whole is ready for that, because kayak fishing, the majority, is still kind of very like grassroots.
Yeah.
Most of these guys like traditional tournament scenes. Like from local level, KBF and up. Like that's what I saw when I was getting the Bassmasters stuff set up in Alabama. Alabama is so grassroots. Like, nah, your tournament allows motors, we're not in. Yeah. And like that's a little problem here. But there's stuff like that all across the country that these other divisions can handle. And you work your way up. I think jumping into like the league style stuff is just too much at one time right now. I think we're growing at such a fast rate that I feel we've got too much coming at one time.
Yep.
Like
I
I
agree.
love the KBBT thing. Like, not my style to fish, but the idea was perfect and perfectly timed.
Yes.
Another thing I could go into that what I would be worried about with the Kayak Fishing League taking off. When the world gets back to more of its normal and we can start having these big live events, what you've seen during COVID is growth in the sport across the country, across kayak fishing. We see it, me and Dan doing the reel down. You went from seeing tournaments that never have more than 20 anglers to places like Canada having an event with 90 people, 70 people in, 90 people
Wow.
in it. And you're seeing that all over the country, events with 60 plus people in them. They have so much opportunity. And, KFL letting these teams be set up, and you got a lot of big name people that are wanting to get in on it. When that happens, when the live stuff comes back, those guys will go wherever the money is.
Yep.
And also, then you got the other half of the guys. They're going to go wherever all of their friends are. Like,
Yep.
You see all these top names. They're always hanging out together. If you've ever been to one of these national
Yep.
events, it's a giant get together. That's what they like. And I just find it hard because there's going to be scheduling conflicts. There's already scheduling conflicts.
Yeah, we know.
Everybody does what they can. Events are still going to cross. There's going to be an event here by Bass, an event here by Hobie, and an event here by KBF on the same day. It's going to happen. You throw another big thing in the loop, and it's going to hurt participation somewhere. So it can be good for some, bad for others. But
yeah, and let me set this record straight here. I'm a fan of KBBT. I'm sorry. I'm actually taking part in the Texas Region National Qualifier. That's going to start September 12th. So I'm not talking bad. I'm not pooping here on KBBT or Greg Nosa. I am a big fan of KBBT. I think if KBBT keeps growing, it's great for the sport.
definitely.
Same thing with KFL. And I say this coming from a good place. Again, I'm not trying to be a hater on what Greg Nosar is doing. I have a ton of respect for Greg Nosar. I've met him personally. I love talking to him. I wish Greg Nosar the best. My perspective, and this is just my perspective, he's doing everything that he can to reach. He noticed, okay, 5 Live, it's kind of gone stale in the sense that Scott Beecher's working on other stuff. Well, Greg Nosa says, if I need to succeed, and this is just my personal opinion, he's saying, I need to take advantage now before whatever Scott Beecher comes out with. Because if it's big, then whatever plans he has are going to be dead, might be dead in the water. Now, Greg Nosa will tell you, no, that's not correct, and I respect him for it. But the truth of the matter is, there's only so many big names that are going to go around, and they can't all fish KBF, KBBT, 5 Live, you name it. Plus their local trolls and all that. Eventually, and this is what's driven to, the anglers are going to go where the money follows. Money's going to follow where the sponsors were to invest in.
Right.
Because that's a lot of, we hate to say it from grassrooted mentality. We don't want big companies to put their hand in our cookie jar and ruin things. That's always the fear when this thing blows up and it's all of a sudden it's gone popular. We see how bass boat, there's a lot of bad blood, and sometimes there's some drama in it and cheaters. Whenever there's money, unfortunately, there's a lot of hidden agendas that come with it that bring negativity to the sport. And that's everywhere. So that's always, like, for me and you, they're more grassrooted into this. We kind of worry about that. We wanted to grow. We wanted to become popular. We wanted to see where anglers can actually be professional kayak anglers, meaning they actually make a living out of this.
Exactly.
A handful of them can, Russ Snyder, Cody Milton. Again, there's a very short list of anglers that can do that. But the money is going to go, it's going to be determined where the sponsors want their product, want to invest. 5 Live has Scott Beecher, and Scott Beecher is a magnet. He's a big personality that attracts a lot of people, from the industry that have been here from the beginning. He's going to get, and the way he does it is he puts the anglers first. He's great at that. Cody Milton, and this is just my personal opinion, Cody Milton, Russ Snyder, Craig Dye, they're going to follow Scott Butcher because they trust in Scott Butcher. So the big names are going to follow Scott Butcher. Scott Butcher just needs to make sure the money goes into whatever he's building,
And he
phase 2, phase 3. You know,
he kind of showed that with the first one. Within like a week or hours, he was able to throw something together to where these guys were like, I think Cody Milton, we joked about it when he won that, it came down to like $500 an hour.
Yeah.
Like he fished 4 hours. I think he got $2,000 for the one event. Like that's good money. Like, so you look at an event where you could win, $5,000 fishing 2 days, 10, 12-hour days, versus this was live covered, camera in my face. I get to talk. I get to show what I can do. And then I won a few grand for 2 hours of my time. And like he showed, and I'm not saying none of these other, I'm not talking, like you said, I'm not talking bad about KBBT. KBBT is awesome. Like, great idea. KBF still has its place. They got a lot of negativity that floats around with them. KBF still has its place.
Yeah.
Hobie and Bass. Hobie is arguably probably one of the best. Hobie and Bass are up there. Hobie's got their stuff dialed in. AJ McWhorter is a go-getter.
AJ is amazing.
Yeah. Bass is, like I said, this is the first year. It's going to move on, just like 5 Live, just like KBBT. It's all good, but like you said, it's going to go. The anglers are going to go where the sponsors and the money go. All these events have big sponsors and big coverage and big payouts, but as it's moving forward, if the media coverage gets there, like Scott wants, that's where people are going to go. And
I'm sorry, you finished with that. I didn't want to interrupt you.
No, that was it. Go ahead.
One thing that I do give a shout out to Scott Butcher, none of the anglers had to pay an entry fee. And every time they won, if they on top of their 5, got paid. KBBT is starting. Greg knows a great dude, great personality as well, but he doesn't have that that influence that right now Scott Butcher has. So it's a little bit different than KBBT.
That can change quickly.
Yeah, that can change quickly. But right now in KBBT, you have to pay to get in, and you don't get paid for winning until you reach the I think the Elite 8 or the Elite 4. I think it's the Elite 8. So that's different.
But
some anglers going to say, "Wait a minute."
That's more traditional.
Yeah.
So like if you look at go to the bass boat world, the whole reason MLF started what they started was to take care of the anglers. Pro bass fishermen are broke for the majority.
Yep.
Gas fees, traveling the country, all that stuff adds up. When they started, they asked the anglers, "What do you want?" And they said no entry fees. And they was like, "Well, we can't guarantee the payouts we said that way, but if that's what you want, that's what we can do." They did that, and those guys followed. Now, there's a whole bunch of other stuff going into that, but we're kayak fishing, and I ain't getting into that. But there's nothing wrong with paying your entry fees. That's the way it's always been in the past, and that's the way it'll be for the majority. And like I was saying, if what Scott's doing takes off, his should be the one that's like that. Just like MLF is the way it is. And as long as I love the growth and all the options, they all don't need to try to do the same thing.
Yeah.
Like with Bassmaster events, some people may not know this. The National Bassmaster events, Bassmaster they send media crew out. Scott did the Logan Martin one himself. They got in a Bassmaster boat, drove around. He took 2,000 photos. They had people calling and getting reports from anglers for articles and stuff like that. People can say that that's not the coverage you're looking for, but that's the coverage they give all the other anglers. Yeah. I saw my picture on there. They drove by and are taking shots of you on the water. That's awesome. Yeah. And I don't know. I can go down a lot of rabbit holes with this, with my.
Yeah. I know what you mean. one thing with with Greg Nosa, I should say, is and that kind of worries me in the sense that right now he's going all in. He's pushing all his chips on the table, and he's saying, "I got to take advantage."
Which you
Again,
have to
he
respect.
probably won't admit this, but he's got to. He's saying, "I got to do this before Scott Butcher comes back. I got to set my ground, and establish myself, and get ready for what's coming."
Which, if you
He
look at it from a
doesn't get.
business perspective, that's what you do. Like,
Yeah, that's what you do. Scott
if
Butcher
he didn't know.
has, and we still have to wait to see where phase 2 of 5 Live goes. This could be a one-hit wonder. We don't think so. My money's on Scott Butcher achieving what he set out to achieve. That's my money on it. But the reality is there's no guarantees. Scott Butcher can, take this time off because of the influence he has on the sport. He's more ingrained into this than Greg Nosar is. Greg Nosar is a businessman. Great angler, he and all that, but he's more of a businessman mentality. Scott Butcher is more like not only a businessman, but he's there for the anglers and he knows the industry better than most people. So Greg Nosar, and again, I'm not trying to create a rivalry. I'm not putting Greg Nosar down. I'm not, or Scott Butcher for that matter. I'm not trying to pin him one against one. It's just our perspective of this. In this case, my perspective. Greg Nosar has to be saying, okay, I have to push all my chips in right now to get this moving. I need to establish myself. The only problem, my perspective again, is it too much for one person? Because now you got the KBBT, and it's the national qualifier. There's a bunch of national qualifiers right now going on. Plus, now you got the group, the teams for KBBT, and so individual tournaments, the team tournaments, and now you got the KFL. All this with a lot of people running a store director that don't really have experience handling this. So, this at the long run, in my opinion, it's gonna be a wear and tear on Greg Nosar. I admire his, his passion for it and his ambition, and I hope I'm not hating. I don't want to be the one that says, "You see, I told you so. This wasn't going to work out." I don't want to be the guy that said, "I told you so." I'm hoping I'm wrong. I'm hoping that he is up to the challenges that he has put himself on, and that he achieves everything he wants to achieve. At the end of the day, if he's successful,
it could
we're
be
all
the biggest
successful.
thing in our sport sees.
Yeah, I hope it is. I'm not saying it's not, and I'm not saying I don't want it to be. Again, I'm a member of KBBT. I just hope that this doesn't crash and burn. I hope it succeeds. But again, Greg Nosar is putting a lot of stuff in his plate right now with everything that he's trying to reach. And the KFL is pretty much uncharted territory here. Go ahead.
Okay, so with it being uncharted, and like you say, and they don't have the experience in it yet, and who does? Because no one's done it. Yeah. It doesn't always stop you. Like, I'd never done major tournament directing before I did this. I fell face first into it, made a bunch of mistakes, but now I know what to look for toward next year. So I admire what he's doing with it. I mean, it could blow up and work. And like he said, this is next year. We're talking about it like it's happening next week. In that time frame, when the details start to come out and it becomes more and more real, people that see that, like sponsors and big names, will start to fall that way. And I don't mean like fall away from Scott. That's not what I'm saying.
Yeah.
If it starts to fall into place and they get an event or two under their belt and everything's going great, whether they've got TV media coverage or whatever, or if it's just happening like all our other tournaments do right now, just like how Hobie does so good and took off because their plan works. Bass, their plan is developing and working. 5 Live, his plan worked. KBBT, it worked.
Yes.
It will take off if that's what, it's an in the future thing. So I don't think that him not having the experience with that, getting over your head isn't a bad thing to me. I get in like just a little. I've been an electrician for 6 years. My last day at work's Friday, and I'm going all in on my own. Like, do I think I'm going to be successful? God, I hope so. And that's kind of the mentality these guys are probably having with it is, well, this is a good idea. Let's go with it. So I don't think that it's a bad thing that, I mean, because obviously no one else is doing it. So you take that, this is my idea, this is my plan. And it's obviously not just pull out of a hat. I guarantee you he's got, notebooks of notes taken that's
no, he's a
got him dialed
businessman,
in.
a smart businessman at it,
Yeah, I can't wait to see where it goes. Like I said, it's not my style of thing. Like I like the traditional stuff, but as far as like would I watch it? Oh yeah. I think it'd be cool. Would I tune in even if it's just on Tourney X on live leaderboards to see the Bama Bass Bruisers or whoever?
Yeah,
that would be awesome. But we'll see. It's the future will tell the tale.
Yeah, I think on the KFL that there's gonna be a lot of trial and error going into this. There's going to be a lot of mistakes, just like anything. And it again, not throwing shade at anybody here, or Greg knows or anybody on his team. The fact of the matter is, this is uncharted territory. They're trying to build something on pretty much blueprints of what you see in American sports. Leagues, tournament, knockout stage, playoff, all that kind of stuff. KBBT has shown that it works without the star power. Now there's Eric Siddiqui, there were Craig Brundle, and so there are some star power, but not the same as, let's say, you see in Five Live. So Greg Nosar has done a great job of building those guys up, giving them like that platform. Like Conrad, nobody knew Conrad Benetti was. Now,
Exactly.
Not that he say he's a household name, but people know who Conrad Benetti is.
And most people may know Conrad more of the stuff that got stirred up because of that.
Yeah.
But that's what I was going to lead into, is where Hobie and Bass is kind of where you see a lot of us like me that nobody knows get into those events, but that's where you see your big names. KBBT is going to, and even KFL is going to give an opportunity, because the team captains that apply to be team captain, they get to pick their team.
Yeah.
So you'll see teams that'll have the big names in it, but you'll find local guys that nobody knows that are, they're like, oh, I'm a football fan. This works kind of like football does. It'll get into it, and you'll see more of the Conrad Benettis coming out, and people that, they maybe travel in the country at the time to do these live events just wasn't in the cards. And some people look at it like, well, I don't want to fish one Hobie if I can't, I can't make it to the Tournament of Champions this year, even if I qualify. It's not in my vacation budget, it's a good entryway for high-level competitive fishing, in my opinion.
Yeah. And I shout out once again to Greg Knows. What I love about what he's doing is, we saw when he came out with KBBT, and it had his naysayers, and they had valid points. I know Kayak Bass Nation was kind of like, hard on them. I'm saying, well, this is all honey holes. You can't, and I know that's where Conrad Benetti got a lot popular, going with Ryan Lambert, and that whole thing off the water that came out. Not throwing shade at anything. I think Ryan Lambert made a good point. I think from the standpoint of Conrad Benetti, he was like, wait a minute, I've been doing this. I've been going through the backwoods in upstate in New York, outside of, from the Bronx fishing. I've been doing this all my life. Nobody's going to poop on my parade. So I understand his point of view. When I look at it from his eyes, and I had him on my show, I can understand. Yeah, I can understand why you're a little bit pissed off. That's what it's been said over there. But Greg Nosa did a good job of saying, okay, you're saying this is all honey holes, right? Okay, well, let's do this. We're going to divide it by region now. Texas is going to have its own region. Florida is going to have its own region. Because it happened the first two KBBT events, it was Texas and Florida, which to the surprise of no one.
Big bass factories, it's going to happen.
Big bass factories. They said, okay, we're going to divide it by regions. Now he's saying, okay, now that we divided by regions, we're going to make a national qualifier. And the top, each region, the top 16s are going to go to a lake without being pre-fished, in a lake that's not going to be named till, later. They're going to set the dates, and whoever wants to take part knows that those dates, and I don't remember the dates right now, take it for vacation, whatever it is, it's going to be the States. But you don't know what body of water it's going to be.
And I like that.
From what I understand, you can't even pre-fish it. Now, obviously, somebody out of all those qualifiers has probably going to have fish in that lake. It's going to have some type of home field advantage.
They'll have history there. Someone will. Yeah,
someone is bound to, and you can't stop that. What are you going to do? Go to Alaska and fish for bass? I mean,
that'd be a nice one.
Yeah, but the point is, he took care of the critics, or the critics' point of view, I should say, and said, okay, well, let's take this out. And now I think he's doing something legitimate. You can't really say. The only thing you could probably say is, well, it's still a bunch of guys that fish on their honey holes to get here, and now they're going to fish an independent. So that doesn't mean that whoever wants it is as good as a Cody Milton or Craig Dye, which is a valid point as well. It's on a vacuum.
But at that point, are you trying to be that person? No, I'm trying to be good at what I'm doing. So and at the same time, you'll see this, like people, not saying Conrad, but someone like Conrad. So let's say I'm a hammer in Alabama. I'm not. I'm just saying hypothetical. Let's say I can't be beat in my honey hole here in Alabama. I join this KFL, and we start traveling. Well, then I'm either going to show that I know what I'm doing, or it's going to expose that I can't fish anywhere but here. But then that's where strategy comes into play. You fish, I think it's 6-man teams, and you fish 4 active anglers. You'll see strategy come into it, where, for Conrad, let's say that Conrad doesn't travel to do the active, but when they're home, maybe that's when Conrad fishes. You can complain about it all you want, but at that point, it's becoming a competition where you are using strategy to win, just like football. Be like, okay, I know this quarterback's hot, so I got to blitz him heavy. He can't, he sucks when he's out of the pocket. It'll be the same thing. There'll be strategy, which will make it fun.
Yep.
It's just if it all takes off, it'll be great. If it falls into the too much going on at one time, then it won't be. But yeah, it to be continued on them. And I don't think you'll see this affect Hobie, Bass, and KBF much.
I don't think it will. I don't think none of them are going away. By that I mean Hobie and Bassmasters. I do think, and I'll again, props to Greg Nosar. He's saying, especially the KFL, saying I'm not bending over backwards to whatever AJ or KBF or Bassmasters do. These are my dates. You want to take part of it? That's why you got 6 guys. A couple of your guys are going to the KBF or the Hobie BOS or the Bassmaster. That's fine. You still got 4 guys. He's not. He's calling his own shots, which I think he has to. I understand a lot of people say, well, he's the new guy here. Maybe he should consider that. No, I don't think he should. I think he's call his own shots, and if you want to take part in this, it's KFL. Do it. Same thing with KBBT. Sorry if you have plans for Hobie BOS. It's your decision. Either you go or you stay.
Like we said before, all that's going to happen is, if somebody was wanting to fish that event, but it falls on the national event, you will probably see people follow the national event. Why? They've been established. They're established.
Yeah. The only thing. Go ahead. I'm sorry.
No, go ahead.
The only thing that I think that might give, and I know Chad Hoover has touched on this before, is especially if Scott Butcher's plan, and I don't know details of Scott Butcher's plan, this is all hearsay, to bring live event and everybody show up. A sponsor Hobie has his own tournament, but New Canoe says, okay, well, I can either have Jimmy fish at KBF or Bassmasters. Great. Nobody's gonna see it. Nobody's gonna see my new canoe, Frontier, Pursuit, whatever it is that you're using. Only the people that are out there fishing, which is only 100 of them, and maybe a few people that tune in, on social media. But New Canoe might say, wait a minute. You mean to tell me I can have Jimmy fishing the 5 live, and my product is going to be shown, live stream for 2 hours Same with Abu Garcia. My reels are going to be there 2 hours. I can tell my guy, hey, when you catch a fish, make sure to say what reel model you're using, or, make sure the logo comes out, and make sure you're wearing my merch.
Make sure you spit your
That,
sponsors.
yeah, that might pursue sponsors to say, I want to invest more on, let's say, 5 Live or KBBT, that style of tournament, than
I
a
think
Hobie
you'll see
BOS.
that. I think that
But
would
I
be
don't think
true.
they're going away. Yeah.
Right. I think that would be true with your bigger sponsors. Like, I know guys that have Shimano in their corner and stuff like that. As far as like kayak fishing specific brands, I don't think they think that way, because we all came from that grassroots. Like no one knew Canoe like I do, part of the team for a while. Great company, great people.
Yes.
They will get their success whether there's coverage of tournaments or not. They've proven that by selling their kayaks, whether there was coverage or not. You have only just now started to see, except for like Derek Brundle and stuff, these big names come over to New Canoe that are winning the tournaments and staying in the top.
Yeah.
New Canoe was not having trouble selling a product before that. Same with brands like Yak Attack, Jackson, so, and you could look at it this way. They're not having trouble moving product now, even with a pandemic going on.
No.
They're sold out. Everyone's struggling.
I go to my local kayak shop over here, and sold out. Their Hobie's on back order right now. But I know what you're saying, though. But when real money comes into the table,
true,
you got to think a company's going to say, okay, well, I didn't think that way because the money wasn't there. But now that it's there, I might have to change my strategy. And again, nobody's going to jump out of Bassmasters or Hobie BOS because of this. I'm just saying there might be a movement of, let me spend more money. If I'm going to spend my budget, my promotional budget on something, the lion's share is going to go to a product where my product is going to be showcased live stream for 2 hours.
And
that's my point of view. That's from a business mentality point of view. That's what I studied in college. So that's my point of view. Again, I'm not saying they're not going to go away. So I wanted to touch on a little bit, and I hope this doesn't get me on the hot seat with anybody here, especially if Chad Hoover or KBF.
See, this is what I like. This is what I like when it gets a little dicey. This is my favorite part of it.
Chad Hoover is my hero. Let's start with that. I love the guy. I talked to him on the phone a couple of times.
I'll pause you right there and say, for anybody listening, you can have bad things to say about everybody. You can have bad things to say about anybody. Anyone that's a fan of our sport, Chad Hoover is a reason.
Yes.
One of the reasons that kayak fishing is where it is. Yeah. If you deny that fact, then you're just an idiot.
Yeah, and let me say this. I'm not attacking Chad Hoover first. I mean, we can all have our opinions. So I think where I draw the lines when you attack somebody's character or personality, and that's certainly not what we're doing here. I have the utmost respect for Chad Hoover. I don't like him when other people bash him. I understand he has a big personality, and that may rub people the wrong way. I've said it on the show before. You don't get to achieve the level of success and bring this sport to a national level with a soft-spoken personality. You need to have, you know what I mean? You need to have this big personality, and that might rub people the wrong way. I have the utmost respect for him. Having said that, talking about KBF though, KBF has, I think, in my opinion, has been hit the hardest with this pandemic. And one of the reasons, in my opinion, again, is because Chad Hoover has really run the KBF brand. It got so big that not that he can't handle it, but it got so big that once the pandemic hit, it's obvious that it was going to be hit the hardest. He has to, readjust a lot of the tournament because, again, he has so much going on with KBF, and that's great. That's amazing. This speaks to great, the great mind, the genius mind behind Chad Hoover and the success he has brought to this sport. But it has been hit the hardest. And I do worry a little bit on the future of KBF because I think it kind of, this is just my personal opinion, it kind of has lost a little bit of its glamour with everything that's going on, everything that's going on in the pandemic. I know some of the readjustments of having now a 2-day tournament with one winner each day, kind of like, I'm not a fan of that. I mean, I guess it works. Again, I'm not hating on it. Chad Hoover knows more about this business than I do. So whatever opinion I have, take it with a grain of salt,
Right.
But I wonder what the future of KBF is going to be. What do you think it is? I mean, I know he's doing some changes. Let me stop you right there. I know you're about to speak. He is bringing some changes, and I think he talked about it on Dark Waters, on Josh Smith's Dark Waters Kayak Fishing podcast. He wants to bring this idea of video instead of photo. And I think that's a great idea. I think you take, basically what you do is you take the fish, instead of just holding the fish and taking a picture of it, you hold the fish, same thing, but you grab a video of it. And then you can shout out to your sponsors, shout out to whatever companies you want to get sponsored by, and then you release the fish. And there's a video of it being released. I think that's a great idea. And I think he's going to implement it next year. He's on a kind of like trial basis right now. So he's doing changes to keep up with the technology that's coming out and the changes in, talking about that same thing. I know I'm getting long-winded here. Talking about that same thing. Tournaments are getting like 5 Live, are getting that live coverage. This is one way that a live event, if they can't afford to have boats, cameras, and drones, which I think that's going to come in the future also.
Oh, yeah.
Televised things, well, that's one way to keep the sponsors interested. Is that, okay, my competitor, Cody Milton, can, instead of just taking a picture, get a video of it and shout out to whatever company he's sponsored by. That may say, the companies may say, okay, well, I'm interested in that. So he's doing some changes. So what do you think the future looks for KBF, in your opinion? Again, this is just our opinion.
So I think, like you said, I think the pandemic definitely affected them, but there are a lot of other factors, in my opinion, from just like outside the window looking in. I think that how I was going on about too big things too much at once, I think KBF had way too much going on.
Yeah.
They were handling it,
but
they had a lot of negativity in other areas that they needed to take care of that I think that they didn't have. Like, they literally didn't basically have the time to put the effort there because they had so much going on.
Yeah.
So, in my opinion, seeing KBF kind of step back, get rid of some of the events. I don't really, the 2-day, 2-winner thing, pretty cool, but at the same time, it's hurting them. You'll have 60 guys for day 1 and not on day 2. Now, you can look at that from 2 perspectives. Not everybody can fish the 2-day event because of travel restrictions, not travel restrictions, but like, I got to get back to work on Monday. I can't drive 12 hours back home and then go to work. So like, I've heard rumor that they were going to make it required to fish both days. Well, that could help, and it could kill your turnout.
Yeah.
But I definitely think it's better having the less events because it's given people more to plan for, I guess, in a way. Because like, when I would look at I don't fish KBF, and a lot of it was because it was just a jumbled mess. It was like event. You can fish this event and you can fish the Pro Tour, but all you got to do to fish the Pro Tour is pay more. And then this qualifies you for this, and that qualifies you for that. And guess what? You just showed up. You're qualified. There was a lot of that going on.
Yeah.
The step back right now, like the way I look at looking at the tournaments as a whole, KBF. So you got your locals. I feel like KBF is the perfect like engine for stepping your up from local, seeing what higher level tournament fishing's like. Big sponsors are involved, big names. Chad Hoover, everybody knows him. Scott does this thing with him, or did. So that it's an entryway for angler coming in, and then you see the people that were like reigning terror on KBF take that next step and follow Hobie, where they're following Hobie around the country, trying to get to that tournament of champions and win those big checks and the big prize and the big name with that big company. And same thing with Bassmaster. These guys are doubled. The guys that were like basically running all over KBF and still do are stepping up to the other level. But with what I've seen this year with me and Dan following the tournaments is with the the big national trails really taking off and KBF kind of stepping back to fewer events, you're seeing a lot of new names. Oh, I mean, a lot of new names. And as the pandemic has started to, I don't want to say thin out I don't want to say level out, like it's not getting worse or getting better, but people are kind of getting used to it.
Yeah.
You're seeing the tournament entries increase again.
Yeah.
So it probably did hurt them, but I don't think the pandemic was the main factor. And then, like you said, I'm sure they've got stuff going on. I don't know the details of it. I know that there's some changes coming. I've talked to people that are close to Chad. I know there's a lot of big changes happening with KBF. Could they be for the better? Sure. Could they be for the worse? Maybe. Who knows? I don't hate what they're doing. I hated a lot of the negativity that they had, which is why I stayed away. There were things with like the payouts and stuff like that, but whatever. It has its place, and I don't think it's going anywhere. At the same time, do I think some of the bigger tournament series are trying, I don't want to say like trying to get rid of it, but like when you enter kayak fishing, you know KBF because KBF was like the tournament series that started it. That may change where as Hobie continues to and Bass continue to evolve, that may be what you hear about all the time because it's like the upper end of the goal you're shooting for if you're a tournament angler. But I definitely think that there has been some push for we want to be known more than KBF is. We want to be better than KBF is, which is, I don't hate that. They're not like I'm hating on KBF, but like competition is healthy. So
we're sorry, your call cannot be completed as dialed. Please check the number and dial again. This is a recording.
So we're back, and I do apologize if you're listening to the show. We got a little power outage, some thunderstorms rolling yesterday while Jim and I were recording. So I was without power for a few hours. So we had to stop recording. So next day, today's Monday, we are re-recording. So I think the last question we were talking about before we got caught off was like, what could potentially happen to KBF? We were talking about KBF, in my opinion, and this is no attack on KBF or even on Chad Hoover, for that matter. Let's just be honest here. KBF is the first one to come up with a national tournament. So I instantly, it was the aura of having a national tournament. Now there's Hobie BOS, there's Bassmasters. We mentioned that because of KBF was so big, the pandemic hit KBF, I think, harder than it hit any of the other major tournaments. And I think Jimmy and I agree on that. So what does the future, and I was asking Jimmy about it, what's the future of KBF as you see it moving forward, Jimmy?
I think I don't think that they're going anywhere. I do think that Bass and Hobie have kind of established that they are, like, if you wanted to say that there's like an elite series, I would say that they've got that kind of locked down. Not one over the other. I mean, obviously, like Hobie's more established right now, but I definitely, when you go with a company like Bassmaster, this is the first year, and it's been a rough year because of COVID, but a name like Bassmaster comes with so much possible backing, and everybody knows who they are. They have the potential to stand out if they take it that far. What we were saying before was, I see KBF as like a good like mid ground for you're stepping out of your local stuff or even just playing with online tournaments. KBF's got a lot of good things going with like the online monthlies, and then they still have really big events like the Super Trails that they do where it's a 2-day event. Russ Snyder's just won the one on KBF Clear Lake out in California, but they've still got like the 10. That's an event that people still are going to shoot to get to and then shoot to win because it means a lot. It's got good paydays. And then the KBF National Championship, as of now, it's a huge championship with huge potential payout money. I think
life-changing money.
Oh yeah. I think that you won't see them go anywhere. I think that we'll see KBF not step back. I don't want to say that's the right way to put it, but they're going to be like what gets you there. And then Hobie and bass will be what makes you, I don't want to say better, more popular, but that's just kind of what it sees. You see these guys that did really good in KBF, and now they're still doing good in KBF, but now they're also stepped up to these bigger level tournaments, these big 2-day events with Hobie, or the 1-day events right now with Bassmaster, winning huge checks on a consistent basis. But that's where I think they'll be. I don't think we'll see them go anywhere anytime soon. Maybe just step back just a little.
Yeah, and it's an interesting point. And again, this is no reflection on Chad Hoover or KBF. Where they are right now is not a bad place at all. I mean, right now we got 3 premier or prestige or elite tournaments, and KBF is one of them. Now Bassmaster is starting. Yeah, we've touched on this on other episodes. I know recently you, Brian, we're talking about this, and I can't remember the episode. I think it was the Reel Down. We were talking about how Bassmasters is evolving in the kayak series. Like it has the name, but they're still figuring some stuff out, right? Like they're not when you look at what AJ is doing with Hobie BOS, I think that's the benchmark for excellence. And this is not, I haven't taken part in the Hobie BOS, but my take on this is based on all the anglers that we've had on Paddle and Fin, and that I've had on my podcast before I was on Paddle and Fin, that have taken part on Hobie BOS, on Bassmasters, and on KBF. And not to prick, favorites, but the way they talk about and gloat about being part of Hobie BOS and what AJ is doing, I think, in my opinion, this is my take on it, looks like Hobie BOS is the standard for excellence as far as how they're going about it, putting the anglers first, how they treat the anglers, and all that. Bassmasters, obviously, their kayak series, I don't want to say it's an afterthought because they have, the big boats, but it's obviously not their focal point. Hobie BOS, that's their focal point, That is, it's just about the kayak series, right? Where Bassmasters is kind of like, Prestige is the bass boat series, and the kayak series is more like, well, let's see where this takes us,
Right.
So, but again, that's my opinion. Now, Chad Hoover's done a great job. Again, we wouldn't be where we are as far as the growth and popularity of sport without Chad Hoover. Would we have reached that level if Chad Hoover never, decided to take this national league? Yeah, we would have, but we wouldn't have achieved the level of popularity and success that we have at this point in time if it wasn't for him. Eventually, somebody else would have stepped up. But he's the one who stepped up first, and he's the one who took it to a national level. So I think the lion's share of the credit should go to him for the job and the legacy he's done. So again, we're not batching on KBF. We have the utmost respect for them. Chad Hoover is not doing it on its own, but it's a family, kind of like a family-owned business where he's a trailblazer, and he's, nobody has taken it nationally like he does. So there's a lot of trial and error where others can go and says, oh, that's what Chad Hoover did. Yeah, that could have been done better. Well, of course, because he did it first. So again, the utmost respect and credit goes to him. And I don't think, like you said, KBF is going to go away. I do think, like you said, it's going to take a little bit of a backseat when it comes to anglers that want to get eventually sponsored or live out of being a professional kayak angler. If it comes to like, well, I have to go to KBF or Hobie or KBF and the Bassmasters, some of the top anglers are probably going to say, no, I'm doing the Hobie BOS. No, I'm doing the Bassmasters, unless it's the KBF National Championship, which again, it's life-changing money.
You're right. Yeah. And so something, I agree with you that Hobie's the benchmark. Yeah. Now, something a lot of people don't realize, because the Hobie BOS is, as itself, is kind of new. They've been doing the Hobie Opens for a while, So they've had a lot of time to put in the work to work out the details, and not taking anything from AJ. AJ's done a phenomenal job.
Yeah.
Put in a lot of hard work, and I don't even want to think about the headache that he deals with.
Yeah.
But, and like you said, that's their focal point. It's a kayak brand doing a kayak tournament where Bassmaster is established. One thing that you can take from that, though, is a company like Bassmaster. So obviously the boat world is what they're focused on. But stuff like that gets stale, and you've seen our industry get stale, and kayak fishing is kind of the spark in the industry right now. Kind of same thing with like MLF. As a business, they see we need members, we need to attack a different market. We need something fresh. Well, that's what kayak fishing can be for them. I know from people I've talked to, I'm good friends with, like Steve Owens and some of the guys forefronting that for Bassmaster for the kayak world. Like the Logan Martin event, they were so impressed. There were hiccups in that, and it was the first of its kind. Right, but they didn't realize what the kayak community is, what we are, what we're about, what it means to us, and what they meant to us, giving us these opportunities to sit down and them tell you, we're following you with media boats. We want to see your names on your boats, on your jerseys. They were calling us, you are now pro level kayak fishermen. This is the big leagues. Treat yourself that way. Talk to our reporters. Do your articles. I think if COVID had never happened, I think Bassmaster would have an opportunity to catch up quickly.
Yeah.
And I already know, and I won't talk about it because I don't know that these are facts, but my sources are pretty good. I know there's a lot of big changes that are going to come, like things that anglers want to happen that they're seeing happening with Hobie. They're going to come with Bassmaster. This was year one. Year two is probably going to bring all sorts of changes that everybody's going to like and keep the numbers up. Bassmaster hasn't had any of these Bass Nation events have had the guys show up. The participation has been up, so I don't think it's been up during a pandemic. I don't think that they're going to have any problems moving forward. And the same thing with KBF. KBF hasn't, you saw at the beginning when they started with the 2 days that you'd have a heavy number day one and it'd fall off on day two. As it's gone on, the numbers have been rising.
Yeah.
So I don't see them taking a hit from that either. I think as a whole, the industry growing, everything's going to start kind of leveling out, but your participation numbers are going to be high no matter where you fish, whether it's local, national, like a KBF monthly, everything I think is just going to do good from here on out with how big we're getting so quickly.
Yeah, it's an interesting, it's interesting and it's exciting to see. I personally don't want to see any of them go away, whether it's KBF, Hobie BOS, Bassmasters, KBBT, the KFL. Everything. The more we have, I think there's such a thing as having too much, and that will figure it out. Eventually, I think things are going to be weeded out in the sense there are going to be things that are going to be like, okay, eventually they'll just fade away because it's not, they're not getting maybe the anglers or the sponsors behind it, because eventually it'll concentrate. You see that in pro sports. There used to be a time when we had two basketball leagues, the American Basketball Association and the National Basketball Association, and then eventually one would be struggle and continue. Then it was the CBA, which is Continental Basketball Association, and that obviously got disappeared. So eventually, as the sports grow, and I'm not saying we're going to be as big as NBA, definitely not going to be as big as NFL, but it will grow. To how far or how big it will grow, it remains to be seen. But yeah, there are going to be things. There are going to be new tournaments coming up. We know Frankie Prolifron from Slay Nation is coming out with his kayak series. And, Frankie is full of energy. So I'm excited to see what he comes up with. And me and Frankie had him on my show not that long ago. He's not trying to reinvent the wheel. He's a smart businessman when it comes to this. And he knows the industry and he knows how business works. So he's not trying to, reinvent the wheel or revolutionize the kayak series. He's just coming along with, with the fundamentals that have been being established and see where it grows. We had on our Spanish segment, Remos and Aletas, we had the founder for Iron Kayak in Mexico, and they're planning to move into the United States. They're going to do, if things stay if things work out for Geraldo Amalguer, that's the gentleman's name for that founded Iron Kayaker. What he's going to do, he's going to do a free tournament in the United States, and he's going to test the waters and see if he can bring Iron Kayaker to the United States. So there's a lot of stuff that's going to be coming out. It's going to grow, and then we'll see how, which ones kind of become the mainstays and kind of which ones kind of fade out.
And that's what we had Russ on tonight. Me and Dan did. And I kind of touched on that with him, talking about the growth and what he sees. And the angle, a lot of the anglers all have the same mindset. And if you talk to them, and they also agree that, like we talked before, that too much can become a problem. But at the same time, like you're saying, we're going to see a lot of things popping up, but they will whittle themselves down to what works, what sticks, where the anglers are going, because your sponsors are going to do the same thing. Because all these guys are coming in with a business plan and wanting a piece of the pie. Well, you got to think about it. The companies that are giving out the money, their marketing budgets are going to get spread so thin that it's not going to be worth it for them to sponsor all these companies. And they're going to, just the name everybody knows, Yak Attack's could at one point be like, look, I can't sponsor the local guys because I sponsor all these guys. Like, blah, 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 blah. I'm not saying that's the company that be. It's just an example. But I think we're both right on it. I think we'll see more and more opportunities come up, but you'll see it phase down. And then with us talking about the three main ones, those three will never go away.
Yeah,
I think those will be the standard.
I mean, not unless Chad Hoover, by his own decision, decides, hey, I've had enough, and I don't, that's my legacy, and I stay with it. But I mean, I don't see that coming. There's going to be a certain point where he's going to, pass the torch to somebody else to, take over KBF, and that's his personal decision. And I'm not, he's still relatively young, so we'll see. I'm sure we'll see a lot more of Chad Hoover. But eventually, Chad ain't going nowhere soon. But eventually, you'll see. As the sports grow, KBF, if he decides, he's going to have to, move it along to somebody else that's going to take the reins. And again, we don't expect that to happen anytime soon. I think Chad will tell you that himself. But, there's a lot of stuff that could potentially help the sports grow. I'm always a big proponent of social media. I know Greg Blanchard does a great job with kayak fishing. This is always a testy or a polarizing name, but when you think about the Guggen Squad, especially John B, I think just made an hour and 49 minute, an hour and 50 minute, almost 2 hour movie of conquering Devil's River on his kayak. If John B ever decides that he's going to go full time, hey, I'm going to start doing kayak fishing, that's going to help the growth. And again, I know a lot of people say, oh, think Guggen Squad or John B, brush it off as, that's not what I'm interested in.
People can say what they want, but a lot of the hate that they get is because they're young people. Well, some of them. I mean, Lake Fork guy, Rob Club, not young people, but they're majority younger people, and they're shaking the industry up. That's why they get all the hate. I don't agree with a lot of their stuff, but like, they were content creators first. Like, I'll say right now, John B is probably one of the greatest at video editing, period. Like, I think he could, if he decided to quit fishing, he could take those skills to anything else, making commercials, anything. But I fully agree with you. If somebody with that content creating, and like Greg Blanchard's great from the tournament aspect of it, that's the kind of stuff that will help.
Christine Fisher too.
Oh yeah, I love her stuff. We had her and Greg on at the same time. Those are my two favorite kayak fishing YouTube channels. Like, I know how the tournaments end because those videos come out, way after, and they're still like suspenseful. Like, let me see that fish catch. How did this go? Like, oh my God, did you win? Yes, I know you won. But like, they're great. But great for our sport too.
Yeah, and touching a little bit on that, on the Guggen Squad and all that, like, and I personally have the utmost respect for John B, because yes, he is a YouTube personality, and that's not really something negative. But I know a lot of people don't like it. I've had other guests that says, yeah, I don't like the whole YouTube personality, the whole millennial personality, whatever. That's their opinion. I mean, it's taken for what it's worth. However, that guy's been fishing in what was it? Brazil, Sudan. He's fishing all over the United States. He's fished in Iceland. The guy is traveling and putting up content. And he lives in Maine now. He used to live down the street from where I live. And when he wasn't going to another country or road trip around the United States, he'll fish the local ponds right around my area, make a YouTube video out of it, which you would think a guy fishing from Sudan would probably think like, yeah, I'm not doing pond hopping videos, but he still
That's
did.
what got him his success.
Yeah, that's what got him success. I put John B separate from the Google Squad because, and I'll be honest with you, I'm not a big fan, let's say, of nothing wrong. I'm not attacking Alec Perry's personality or character. I don't like his videos a lot because a lot of it, especially when he got started, and I haven't watched it recently, maybe he's changed, but had to do a lot with him getting kicked out of an airplane because he was being insubordinate, him getting kicked out of a hotel, him getting kicked out of a marina. And to me, I saw a trend of YouTubers now going for that clickbait, being obnoxious on the water or wherever, and then getting that clickbait. And all of a sudden, hey, that's what's going to get you popular, because Alex Perry was the first one who started off with MTV. So he pretty much founded, the whole Google Squad. I know Robert Turkler was also involved in that and everything, but he was the first one to hit it big. And a lot of it was because of the whole clickbait. And I've seen other YouTubers go that route, especially young kids go that route. And that's what I see.
It's not even fishing. You see, like in YouTube and streaming, clickbait is just what that is. It gets the click, which gets the view, it gets the popularity, brings in the money.
And that's not good for the sport.
No.
At all.
No. There's tons of, you're seeing more and more content creators, pop up with good stuff. Craig Dye puts together a lot of really nice short clips. I think he's got a couple, like he put together the Hook One Team video. I can't remember, it was him and somebody else. And the Hook One Team video, the last one they did, was excellent. Yeah. I hate that I didn't get to put in any content in that, but I had just got on the team, and that was before I started like filming my trips. But he does a good job. And then, like we said, like Christine does really good. And
Catherine Field started YouTube, and they're pretty good. I like it. I'm a big fan of hers.
Yeah, and I think that we're gonna start seeing a lot more of that, because I kind of click around and just see like go through like new uploads in kayak fishing and stuff. And I mean, like even Chad Hoover, I still watch all of Chad Hoover's YouTube videos.
He does. Yeah, I forgot about that. Yeah, he does. He's now doing his own channel.
Yeah.
Chad Hoover Fishing, which is great. I love his content as well.
Yeah, like I like the videos. Like I love his tournament coverage. Like when they would do the 10 and he'd drive around and catch the anglers on the water. I liked those. But then I like he did the video where it showed him catch he caught like a 10 something. Like I like to see Chad do good too. Yeah. And he was talking to, if you haven't watched it, it's a really good video, because he says something about either they're not biting or it's not right or something like that. And then he hooks a monster. But it's just like perfect timing. Or he might have even been talking about how long it's been since he hooked a tank. I can't remember, but then he just turns around and catches a tank.
Yeah. I saw that one. Yeah, you're right. I saw that one. He said it's been about 2 years since he hooked the mega bass like that.
Yeah. But it's great for us, and they'll just keep being more and more of that coming.
One thing that I kind of like feel fortunate there, our conversation got cut off and we had to restart it or kind of continue it, is we got a chance to see Russ Snyder put up some godly numbers in California, and I wanted to touch that briefly. I know between what we started recording and now we're gonna end up with like a 2-hour show, but Russ Snyder, man, that guy's on another level. I mean, even him and Cody Milton, I thought, well, Cody Milton did the 5 Live. Maybe Cody Milton is going to surpass, Russ Snyder. But Russ Snyder has come back with a vengeance, man. And I love to see that rivalry between them. And again, it's a friendly rivalry; they get along great. But just watching them duke it out, man.
And the real race right now is actually him and Jody.
Yeah, because Jody's been on a hot streak lately too.
A number that Dan had. So Russ is leading the KBF AOI.
Yeah.
Russ is leading the Hobie AOI, but he's only leading by like 2/10, and Jody's on his tail. So that kind of changes up where they got to fish or what events they're going to fish. Bassmaster doesn't do an AOI, but if you base it off like how they do point scales in other series, Russ would have that in the bag right now too, leading that. So if you look at the three main platforms, well, the three big kayak fishing platforms, Russ is on top of the world, no matter where he's at. Like his worth in the last, it was 3 or 4 months, his worth finished is 12th. And he talks about he talked about going to the Delta and was like, oh yeah, I didn't do good in that event. He got 10th.
10th, yeah.
Out of 50 people.
California is such a different beast, man. Like on that event, the top 3, and probably more, but we had the top 3. I actually substituted for you on that show. Were from California, and again, it could have been the top 10 for all I know. And Russ ended up with 10. Now Russ is from California originally,
and he used to guide out there. So
yeah. So on this event on Bassmasters, the one he just won, the top 11 are from California. California is a different beast, and it's kind of like a shame in the sense that we get, when we look at all these great anglers in the Midwest, and probably one of the reasons why business decision why, and I don't know his personal decision why he moved to Indiana, but from a tournament standpoint, that's a great move for him because this is where the money is. I think California is underrated, and a lot of it is because here in the Midwest and even up to New York, everything is just, it's just geographically, it's all level. Everything is close by. Everything, you got relatively close by. But then between, the Midwest and the California, there's the whole Rocky Mountains, and that is, as far as bass fishing goes, that's dead land. There's nobody doing tournaments in Utah, in Phoenix, in maybe there are in Phoenix, but you don't see a lot of it. Montana, South Dakota, you don't see any of that out there.
You're seeing it more, like we had a group from Colorado on. Most people wouldn't think about it. You think Colorado, you think world-class fly fishing.
Yeah, but they're still years away in the sense of popularity. And right. I mean, it'll be years away before Hobie BOS or even I don't think Bassmasters ever going to say, maybe they have, but with the Kayak series, I don't know if they would say, okay, let's go to Utah. It's not going to happen. I mean, you're not getting the great numbers that you would get. So geographically, it's hard for all those California anglers to kind of join us on the Hobie BOS and the Bassmasters that traditionally take place in southern parts of the country and the Midwest, all the way from Texas to Tennessee, all that. That's where usually that's big bass country. That's where you get that bass fishing culture. And California is underrated as far as bass fishing goes. That's a bass factory up there.
Well, Clear Lake was Bassmaster labeled it number 1 bass fishery in the country.
Yeah, and I believe it.
Yeah.
I mean, we got Texas. We're proud of our bass heritage here. You ask any Texas, we'll tell you this is bass capital of the United States right here. But I mean, again, that geographically, it's hard for those anglers to come out, and travel all through the Rocky Mountains, drive all the way up to Tennessee and all that. So that's why you don't get to see them. But when the tournament's out there, I mean, unless you're Ross Snyder, you really don't have a shot of winning anything. On the show that we had, which was the Hobie BOS that we did? In
the Hobie
the Delta? Yeah. The kid that ended up in 2nd or 3rd place, that was his first tournament ever at any level. But he knew the area.
And he smacked him.
So it shows you what... it's just a different beast out there. And it's a shame that we can't get him to come up, and show up for this events right here.
Yeah,
So we'll see.
you're seeing names moving, not even in our industry. One of the biggest names in fishing industry, Tactical Bassin, just made a move from basically their home is Clear Lake, and they moved to Chickamauga, Tennessee. They moved to Tennessee. Russ is in Tennessee. And he made a move from there, and then he went back out there and whipped everybody's butt.
Yeah.
But no, I agree with you.
If you count as Russ as being Californian, then the top 11 are just all Californians.
Mm-hmm. But yeah, it's impressive to see the level of anglers out there. But like you said, you're spot on with that. They're kind of like landlocked in a way to what they have.
Yeah.
But maybe with the expansion of our industry, you'll see more and more branching out, more and more opportunity for those guys too. Or they may just keep themselves separate from us and lock it in where nobody can compete with them out there.
Yeah. It's gonna definitely interesting, but we'll see how the sports grows. Like you said, maybe at some point, there's gonna be some tournaments up closer to the Rocky Mountains and all that, kind of like bringing them all together. But definitely exciting. It was great having you on my show, Jimmy. Before I let you go, since you're my guest here on this show, if you want to take the opportunity to thank any of your sponsors, family members, and all that, and tell us a little bit of what can we expect from Jimmy in the future and the Reel Down.
Well, I'll start to thank my wife. She's been a trooper through me dropping all my other hobbies and getting into this, and I never thought I would go this far. Getting in a cheap plastic boat and then better plastic boats and a lot more plastic boats, and then sponsors and podcasts, and a big shout out and thanks to her. Love her to death and love my kid for sitting quietly while Daddy does these podcasts. But yeah, I thank my sponsors. New Canoes, my big one. Love everything they got going. Love being part of that team. Yak Gadget. I did an episode the other night, last minute, with the Paddle and Fin Noob show, talking about some
Great
kayak
show.
I appreciate it. Some kayak storage options. If you haven't, check out Yak Gadget. John's got some awesome innovation going over there. New one, couple new ones that are pretty recent. BioEno Power. I've got their lithium batteries running my motor setups and my 9-inch Raymarine Graph. And then my newest one, Dobbins Rods. Picked up those, or I've had those rods. I've been using their rods for probably 3 or 4 years, and jumped on their team. And it's my kind of team. You got to work for what they give you, so that's what I like. But thanks to all those guys for sticking with me this year. But as far as moving forward, I've got a few tournaments coming up. I'm kind of all over the place. We're either going to meet up with some of the Paddle and Fin hosts. We're going to come down here and we're going to go do some smallmouth stuff in Tennessee. But if that doesn't work out, the KBF Super Trail is on Wheeler, which is 10 minutes from my house. And I don't want to step up and say winning spots, but I've got spots that produce that could potentially keep you in the top 20 fairly easy.
Awesome.
Especially for 2 days. But then probably hit the Hobie on the Coosa. The Bass Nation event on Chickamauga. I'll do that. That's later in the year. I'll be at that one. And then as far as the Reel Down, man, we're going to keep the winners coming. When the tournament season starts to slow down, we'll start to kind of branch the show out. Me and Dan are both got some ideas. We'll have tournament directors on from all over the country, from local to national. We'll probably jump in some companies with us and owners of businesses and stuff. Not as in detail as people like the Final Cast does with the brand review, but to talk more about the tournament stuff, like brands like New Canoe and what they see out of their tournament anglers and where the industry's going for them, how that affects how they do things. But yeah, fun ride, and thanks for having me on, man. I love your show. You can have me on whenever you want, man. I'll come back for sure.
I appreciate it. And again, sorry we had to cut off the show. I think the flow of the show kind of got killed with the power outage. But it was great talking to you, Jimmy. We wish you the best moving forward, man. We're always looking forward. You can catch Jimmy on the Reel Down on every Monday at 8 o'clock live show, right? On Facebook and on YouTube under Paddle and Fin. And then the next day, if you can't catch it live, you can catch it on YouTube and on pretty much any podcast platform out there.
We're on basically all of them.
Yes, sir. And for my listeners, thank you for made it this far. Remember, this Bass Kayak and Beers is sponsored by Douglas Rods. Go check out douglasoutdoors.com to find the nearest authorized dealer for Douglas Rods, one of the best rods right now in the business. They got the two lineups, the All LRS and the Matrix, both great lineups. Strength to weight ratio is unparalleled. So go to douglasoutdoors.com to check out the nearest leader and check out the full catalog. So again, Jimmy, thank you so much for hanging out, and we hope to have you here back soon, and looking forward. Tight lines, y'all, and have a great night.
Thanks for tuning in to another killer episode on Paddle and Fin. Don't forget to go check out our website at paddle_and_fin.com. Don't forget to check out the YouTube channel at Paddle and Fin. If you got a question, comment, want to hear from a future guest on a future episode, feel free to email us at paddle_and_fin@gmail.com. Don't forget to follow us on social media at Paddle and Fin on Facebook and Instagram. Shout out to our show supporters, Angler. The Angler button and app just makes for a better time on the water and creates a virtual logbook for every fishing outing out on the water. Shout out to Rocktown Adventures, located in Northern Illinois, for all your kayaking, camping, and hiking needs. TRC Covers, protect your investment. Ketch Products, shout out to Ketch Products. Go to ketchproducts.com and put the Paddle and Fin logo directly on your catch board. Shout out to JigMasters Jigs. When in doubt, get the jig out. Go to JigMasters.com, use promo code PNF20 and save 20% on all your jig and tackle needs.